All right, you want to do the intro?
When's little Everfest gonna hit the market?
Never.
Welcome back to the reaction phase, ladies and gentlemen. You guys know me. My name is Josh,
and my name's Little Tails.
I thought it was Little Monarch. Is it Little Tails?
No, you're right. This is Little Monarch. It's backwards. George doesn't know the order of my kids, even though one of them's two.
Quality businessman right there. We have a special guest for this podcast. The best content we're ever going to put out right here. We got little Fab. I don't know. Is it Little Monarch?
The best part about me doing my podcast with my kids is like you never know how long the podcast is going to be. Like this could be a 15-minute podcast. Everyone, you'll never know unless you look at the timestamps.
Yes, and it's going to be more scuffed because I am officially committing right here, right now, to have a background for the next podcast. Everyone who views Hometown TCG knows I have a sick background for all the filming, but we do podcasts in a different spot, and I don't ball like you, so I still got to build something back here.
I like it. Well, this came with the house, so I didn't have to do anything. I just put the stuff on there.
No, lean in. I built it all with my hands.
This is why I built the house, or I bought the house, was because of this shelf for my crap.
That's why I have the second kid. My wife walked in, I was working with my hands, my shirt was off, I looked so good. Like, you gotta learn to lean into these things, bro.
Hey, happy Super Bowl Sunday.
Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Another reason, if you hear my dog go crazy, I have people that are going to be coming over and starting slow cookers. I do a big thing for the Super Bowl every year. So we have...
Who are you rooting for?
Good game. A good game, cold beer, hot wings, you know.
I like it. I'm jealous. I wish I could come over.
Are you one of those people that's like, oh, sports ball? Like, come on, don't be that guy.
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know the Super Bowl was this week until like Friday.
All right. Well,
I don't watch. I'm not a football fan. I'm a hockey fan.
I saw you in a hockey jersey in some video because I support you and watch your content, and I was like, oh, okay, sports, that's cool.
Yeah, I'm a hockey fan. I'm not a football. I'll watch the game tonight, but the two kids thing really takes a lot out of the Super Bowl experience.
That is true. My wife, if you're really into it, you got to cheer quiet. What are we talking about? Hold on, do like the rundown of the podcast.
Yeah, okay, sorry. All right, let's just get going. All right.
Hold on, where can you find this podcast?
You can find it on Spotify, and I don't know, go to reactionphase.com. It's all there.
And it's the #2 podcast in its category.
In New Zealand, we're the #2 podcast in New Zealand, which in my opinion makes, I haven't looked up May the Zoo Be With You, but I'm guessing that means that I have the #1.
Absolutely no. Podcast. They don't want to watch that swill. They come here to Hometown TCG for their news.
What category was that? It was in the hobby category or something. Anyway.
Yeah, something cool.
So we're going to talk today about the Everfest meta, but I know that sounds a little bit boring. Don't worry. We're going to talk. We have section #2 is called one set a year, or one full set a year or whatever.
Oh, that section's going to be spicy.
And we're not going to be super positive about that, but we're going to try to be positive the rest of the episode.
I don't know my take.
Yes, I do. #3, we're going to talk about the market, where we will try to be positive as well. And then lastly, we have our crazy comment section. So this will be a wild episode. It'll be
going to be a nuts episode, but it's not going to be crazy negative either. Let's not get carried away.
Just remember that we love the game, everyone. All right, let's hop in. Let's talk about the Everfest meta.
100%. So for those of you that don't know, I have an announcement that I'm going to shill for a second, so you can go ahead.
Shill, baby, bring it. It's on your channel this week.
Or whatever you do with kids. I'm not a dad. I don't know.
The podcast is on your channel this week. Just remember that.
Dude, I've got an announcement that I think is dropping tomorrow if you're watching this on Monday, that I am looking to shake up competitive Flesh and Blood with a group of people that are looking to do the exact same thing. It's going to be spicy. So I've got some sweet info on the Everfest meta. And I wanted to start with this topic because I think this is one of the most fun parts of the year for any TCG, where there's a meta shakeup, but even if there is a defined meta and something's OP, we don't know it yet. So everyone's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and looking at this thing saying, my pet tech is going to take it all down. I think I'm stoked for it. I think it's sweet.
Was it last week on the episode that you said that FaB Twitter was exploding, or was that one our private conversations?
I think that might have been our private conversation, but that's a good point.
So I've been very much paying attention to FaB Twitter since then, and I think it's hilarious that people think that people's tweets are real. Like, it's so obvious that people are trying to deflect from what they're obviously doing.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
It's
Like
like
the competitive players are trying to be like, this is OP, this is OP.
and
It's
they're
like,
like
look over here while I slap you with the left.
they're not quite doing it either. They're like kind of teasing out little ideas here and there, but they're not quite giving the full. It's great. I love it.
But it's so cool because even if that's the case, if everyone is doing the I agree, 100%, Little Monarch. Yeah. If everyone's doing the look over here while they get you with that means everybody's in the lab brewing, right? And everybody is like trying to come up with the best deck. That means nobody really knows. If I think I can fool you, that means I think you don't know. So the meta right now, because we haven't anything shake out, technically wide freaking open. It's so sweet.
It'll be interesting to see what we get from the SGC con this weekend.
Yeah, definitely will be.
They had a couple events. They had a couple events that didn't fire. There's a couple people in my Discord server that were there. They had a couple events that didn't fire, but they had the Battle Hardened was today while we're recording, I think, and they had I think 80 registered.
Right.
I'm not sure how many actually will end up playing, but it'll be interesting to see what deck lists we see and what wins that stuff.
So just to be, I don't know, not to be negative, but to be a little critical. I'm pretty plugged into FaB. I didn't even know about this thing. Yeah, I knew about Star City Games Indie. There was a big article about it, right? And I'm going to Indianapolis, and I knew about that, but I didn't know about this one.
I knew about it. I saw. I mean, I remember. I remember seeing it, being like, "Oh, this is the first big FaB event of the year."
Okay.
I do not think that anybody wants to call this the first big FaB event of the year anymore.
No, I don't think so. I think this is the warm up. This is like the
let's call this a. Let's hope it gets bigger.
It will. I already know. I know a ton of people going to Indy. Which, if the numbers coming out of where I didn't even know, where is it?
I don't know.
Georgia. Yeah, whatever this first FaB event, if the numbers coming out of this are true, I think I know more people going to Indy than participated. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not concerned. I don't think this one was marketed all that great.
Yeah, and like that's the this is not part of the Everfest. Well, I guess it is, because what I was gonna say is like it'll be interesting to see if anybody pulls their deck tech there, or if they like bring out some non-spicy stuff in the preparation for ProQuest, to see if anybody like wants their deck to be seen before the ProQuest start or whatever. I don't know.
Hiding the pitch.
I mean, the same is true, right? Like we kind of saw ProQuests. Were they called ProQuest last year? We kind of saw ProQuest not be at. No, it was the Road to Nationals.
Road to Nationals, I think what it was called.
People were not playing like their best decks because the calling was coming. They were all kind of like keeping their tech a little bit secret before the calling. I think that's probably what's going to happen at SGC Con.
So you're saying there's a chance?
It was interesting. Interesting that I don't know. It was just an interesting weekend. I don't want to get too much into SGC Con. But,
no, it's definitely an interesting weekend. But as far as the meta goes, I know you had been a big like proponent. And I can't remember between our private conversations and podcasts. So if I leak something here, my bad. But
you were nothing I have to leak.
You were a big, Starvo is the meta. Starvo is everything. And I think your argument was the card pool. I've got it on good authority. Starvo's a 500 deck right now. Yeah. And the sources that it's coming from, I'm trusting, and it could be. I mean, obviously, any 500 deck to start off is always great. You could always tweak it for a meta and stuff like that. But it's not like Chain coming out or something like that, or Lightning Briar, where it came out of the gates as a 68 to 70% win deck. The deck is 500, which is cool, and it can explode, but it's vulnerable to those bad draws, which I'm not saying who said that, but lack of consistency. If you look back and read the chat, maybe, you know what I'm saying?
So I do not. Team Kitchen Fable keeps me very, very much in the dark. Intentionally,
as they should, because you will leak something.
Oh, 100%.
You'll say
they know that. There's two groups of people that leave me very much in the dark: Team Kitchen Fable and the Whales. Neither of those people like to talk to me because of fear that I will actually.
Editor, can someone play Green Day's Lonely Road here? Can we?
The Whales don't want me to say what cards are actually selling for, and the Team Kitchen Fable doesn't want me to disclose their deck lists.
Right,
so
right.
It's wild. No, that's not true. Nobody has actually. That's just my joke. Nobody has actually said that to me. But
all the I can't lean into this because the announcement is coming Tuesday. But trusted sources that I know are saying it's very open. A lot of decks have legs and can get there. They might not be the most optimal, but they have legs and can win games. And that's a dangerous spot to be in. You don't know what you're going to play against.
I can tell you from selling on TCG Player, of which I have today, I shipped out 80 orders. I can tell you from selling on TCG Player that Guardian is being purchased like crazy.
I can believe that. I can 100% believe that, but that's the prop up in this set, right? This whole set is like shoving Guardian in your 100%. Face. It's the easiest one to lean into.
Guardian and Runeblade being purchased. Yes. You can't keep anything in stock. And maybe because of Blitz, I don't know. But I can't keep the boots, the wizard boots in stock.
Oh, okay.
Stormstriders.
Stormstriders. I mean, Kano's got a ton of legs in Blitz, and I said it in a video, I think it was last week. Kano's one of those. Kano's already showing up and surprising people. Like if you don't prep for Kano can get there.
Yeah.
Right. It's when the whole meta preps for Kano that Kano's just kind of sit in the corner and cry. But if you don't prep for Kano can get there. And there's some spicy stuff that came out for Kano. I think it's in a cool spot. I'm waiting for the one player. Have you played Kano like at an event before?
No, absolutely
Dude,
not.
It's like a mental drain. Like
You've
it's the whole time.
Kano once. It was on the stream with the other guys.
It
went really well. I don't know if you remember that, but it went really, really well.
I refuse to acknowledge that portion of the statement. I will not. I refuse to acknowledge that. But I know as someone who's played it at Blitz events, at like 6 to 8 round Blitz events, dude, it gets mentally taxing. Shout out to my Kano players out there because it's every play and every game is a grind that comes down like to minute decisions that matter. So someone that's taking Kano to a calling or even a pro quest or anything that's like 8 rounds, it's a slog, man. And so I think we're gonna see a lot of Kanos drop that could win games just because of mental error.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't know that Kano. I know that he got some tools for this in Everfest. I'm not sure he got the tools to be. It seems like the other heroes got better tools in a lot of ways. It's kind of like Brute. Like Brute got some other cards, but like, did they?
That's another deck. I like Brute. I think people are low on Brute. Again, Brute would be a meta pick, depending on your Guardians and stuff like that. How the meta shapes out as far as what Guardian hits prominence, Brute's definitely a meta pick.
So the other thing is that there is a Blitz push right now, and that so my TCG player comment, like people are building Valda right now. Crippling Crushes are selling like crazy. What's the not Crippling Crush? Sorry, what's the super rare?
Cartilage Crush.
Cartilage Crush.
Is it Cartilage Crush?
Yeah.
Now you got me second guessing.
That one's selling like people are buying that out at like guys. One person bought 13 copies today.
Cartilage Crush is not the blue. It's I'm gonna get destroyed here.
The super rare, whatever the
Spinal Crush. Spinal Crush the Majestic.
That's Majestic. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, Cranial Crush.
Cranial Crush.
Cranial
oh my
Crush.
gosh. We're going to get roasted. Comment section. I have shipped out 100 of those this week.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I opened 100 boxes of WTR in the last 2 weeks.
I saw the video and wanted
not me. I paid a high schooler to open up 70 of them. But
balling out the gym, high school labor, let's go. So dude, Cranial Crush is a super cool card though. It does like everything you want to do. It's a neat card. I'm in on it.
Right, but my point before we got lost, my point was that there's a lot of people building Blitz right now. I know like skirmish season's coming up. There's a lot of people building Blitz with the new Blitz heroes. So that could be warping some of the my comment about
some of the sales.
Player, but I'm telling you right now, Guardian is going to see a lot of play in Pro Quest.
There's that OTK Benji list that's going around.
Crazy.
Dude, it's one of those decks, and I put it in line with Starvo. It doesn't seem super consistent. You maybe can try to play around it a little bit, but man, what a cool concept! Like the architect of that was that. I don't want to mispronounce the name. Kungan. Yeah, Koganya. That's that deck. I saw they put a video on.
Koganya is my second favorite YouTube channel other than yours. But if I was on a podcast with him, I would say that he is my favorite YouTube channel other than Yazi. And if I was
guys,
on podcast with Yazi, it would be Yazi.
This is the second time I'm closing out the podcast today. Thank you for this. No, but
Chugane and I did a video together a long time. He's a good guy.
Yeah, but so I want to give him credit. I don't know. I don't know if he gives credit to somebody else in the video for the deck or if it's his deck. However it is, go watch that video. It's such a cool deck, and stuff like that is spicy and fun. And that's what I wanted to lean into with Everfest coming out. And, especially in this time when the meta's unknown, people building these decks that are just so much fun for them. And they're like, this is my project. I want to make it work. I love this time of the year for FaB.
Here's my fear.
You're afraid.
This is my fear. This is exactly where we were going into Tales of Aria meta season, where nobody really knew exactly what was going to happen. And then the big event happened and Briar started. And then everybody and their grandma, like I remember like getting orders from grandmas on TCG Player. Everyone and their grandma was buying Briar and building that. I'm just joking. It was building Briar. And like then everyone started complaining that that's the only, like I just think like
my grandma's got mental fortitude. She played Kano.
There is so much more to explore in Everfest. Like my fear is that like the big deck wins and then everyone just goes to that deck.
100%. But okay. So this is what I don't want to do. That happened in Tales. Sure. And
that happens bad in Tales.
And it's liable to happen again. However, I don't want to make trouble that doesn't exist yet. Right? That's not a problem yet. Let's not make it a problem.
Well,
and
I'm just saying
people until the end of time will always say, what deck wins the Calling Indianapolis? That's the deck I'm playing. People till the end of time. They will look up a top 8 deck list and they will play that deck. That will 100% happen.
That.
But Flesh and Blood is a unique experience where someone who does that, Louis, if you take the top 8 deck list and I take my favorite deck that's not a Nationals competitive level deck and you don't get coached and we just play one-on-one, I will beat you.
100%.
I will beat you. Because Flesh and Blood lets skill shine, and my shtick is I play the game more than you do. You focus on a couple different things, right? So it lets these players, people that are going to grab this deck, so a tournament being 75% Starvo, if that deck wins something, is not an accurate representation of power, because a lot of people will take that deck and they will get beat, right? They will
just think lose. That's true about Briar?
No, I'm saying that let's not make mountains out of molehills here. The scenario you're saying hasn't happened yet.
I'm saying to the community that's listening to this, don't do that and learn the card for yourself. That's what I'm saying. I don't think
they will, because I don't think there's a Briar out there right now that can be so dominant where you don't even know how to play it and still win.
I hope what we see from the top 8 of these. When are the first events? Once ProQuest, it's like next week, isn't it?
I think so. Some of the ProQuest, but like you said, I don't think people are going to bring their spice. I
don't think people have their spice ready because
I know a couple people that have some spice.
I know people who still don't have their Everfest cards.
That is true, and that is scary. I've got a couple people asking me like, "Oh, hey, locals that are competitive players, like, hey, can we borrow a place out of this?" Yeah. They assume I'm a content creator. I have them. I'm like, guys, if I had them, you could, but I don't, and I don't have them. So
so it's gonna be super interesting. I think
let's wrap up because we're about to be a little on the negative side, and I want to stress this one more time. This is the best time for like Flesh and Blood and TCGs. This is so much fun. This is so much fun.
Yeah, I particularly like this section where it's like what's going to happen, and then in 2 weeks it's like figuring out what happened, and that's gonna be a lot of fun, and it's gonna be fun to watch.
There's an element to that, like what happened and how do we beat it now too, which is cool. That's cool in its own right.
So this was like a little preview. This is like a little preview to what will be in 2 weeks on our podcast, which will be like evaluating the ProQuest meta. So stick around.
Is all the competitive play stuff coming right back here to Hometown Oh my gosh.
So stick around and make sure you're subscribed to our channels. Okay, let's move on to just a little plug. Do you
want to sell anything on this podcast while we're here? I listen to May the Zoo. Do you want to sell anything here as well? Like just while we get into this?
We won't talk about my Legions bundle that's coming out soon. All right, here we go.
Oh, I'm so stoked for that bundle. I hear it's got 2 boxes.
Stop. Oh my gosh, you and George are the worst. All right. Part 2 of our podcast today is talking about the announcement that we're going to only have one standalone set this year. What are your thoughts about that? Little Monarch? Are you Monarch or Tails? I can never remember. Little Tails. What are your thoughts about that? I want my dad to be able to make videos.
So I'm gonna soft. What is it? A dry snitch. I'm gonna dry snitch on us again. this announcement came out, and I was working. I took a break from work. I put on my headphones and I walked to Starbucks and I called you from my cell phone, and I was in shambles because with one standalone set a year, guys, I love Flesh and Blood. I don't think I have to defend myself anymore. I told you I did the shelf math, the math that it cost me to build all the product on my shelf behind me to shoot videos, and I cried. But man, one standalone set a year, like, it does not a ton of opportunity for content make, and it does not a ton of opportunity for like shaking up play either, right? I'm a little scared.
So
help me. I'm scared.
Let's paint the picture a little bit. This came from the James White IVC2, is that correct?
Yeah.
Article. And in that article, he talked a lot about sustainability of products and not wanting to have big flashy things. He kind of said we're not going to be in Walmart and all that stuff. And then he also said this year,
which, by the way, great move.
Sure.
I think it's a great move.
Yeah, it works definitely very well for Flesh and Blood.
Yes, I love it.
And then we had the he basically said there's a product coming out in April that is we don't know any details about it, but it's a product.
That's the question mark product
coming out in April that is connected to lore and a good new player kit. So it is quite obviously PvE, 100%. Now it's either going to be my guess is either going to be PvE or it's going to be like a dual deck type thing, like a dual deck blitz type thing, or dual deck.
I think he did mention it was in the vein of the Iridex.
Yeah,
but yeah. Anyway, so we have question mark product, and then he also mentioned one more supplemental.
And then he said, "This is the key. This is what we're talking about right now." Is that he said in June? I think in June we will have and he said the only standalone booster box for 2022. And then at the end of the year, there's another product that's connected to Christmas and a supplemental set. Right. So this is let me get all the negative out there all at once right here. My YouTube channel, which is predominantly Flesh and Blood, I make 10 to 14 Flesh and Blood videos a week. This is the channel. It goes like this. Whenever there's a new set, the interest level of the channel and the interest in the views is way up. And whenever there's not a new set, when we're in this standalone time, or even the
she wants more sets, dude.
She's like, give me more sets, James White.
More content, please.
My dad needs views.
James White, how can you turn down the beautiful face of the adorable baby?
But whenever we have more sets, or whenever a new set's coming out, there's more interest in the game. And this is the same for LGSs. When a new set comes out,
that is not a standalone Flesh and Blood problem, by the way.
No, not at all.
Let's just say this is just how TCGs work. So that's not a comment on Flesh and Blood. It's when a new set for a TCG comes out, interest for that TCG spikes.
Listen, I didn't play Magic the Gathering for 3 years, and then I saw a trailer for War of Spark, and I said, holy crap, I want to go to a pre-release. And I said, okay, where's the nearest pre-release? And I saw a pre-release, and I went, and I started playing Magic the Gathering again. I played for 3 years until Flesh and Blood came out, and I stopped playing Magic the Gathering.
Sure.
Like I went into that LGS
new set that hyped you and brought you in.
Yeah, and I went into LGS 2 times a week for 3 years as a result of a new set. Right. And this is a story that you hear. All the new sets bring new people into games. That's the way that TCGs work. If you're 100%. If you're not going to put new sets out, then your number of new players, you're going to have, in this case, one big time where new players are coming in. And one of my
big influx. Yeah.
One of my big things with Everfest was, and they a little bit fix this, but just let me say the big was like, hey, this is a supplemental set and it's not going to bring new people in. It's going to supplement the people who are already in. And they did a couple things, which let me play devil's advocate. Let me react to myself. They did a couple of things with Everfest. They put some new heroes, they put some new stuff. And that's great. And it probably brought some interest, but it did not bring as much interest as a set that has a pre-release, a set that is draftable. I mean, for stores, only one draftable set in 2022 seems like it's going to be like stores make money off of drafts. All the stores that are super successful in TCGs do drafts because it sells packs and it sells product. And like one draftable set this year.
So let me even outside of that, right? From a longtime player perspective, I've kind of pivoted into this position where when I go to local armories, I don't not care about winning. I always want to give people good games. And you have your high level players that every time I play against them, I want to give them a good game because they're looking for work. They're looking to try to play against someone who knows what they're doing. But then you also have to balance that with your newer low level players, giving them a fair and welcoming introduction to the game. And playing Lightning Briar against those players is not a fair and fun, welcome introduction to the game, right? So there's that balance there. But the great equalizer in this world of your local armory, which is your local armory and your local scene, is the core of this game. Those are the people that then go to pro quests and then go to skirmishes. That's the foundation of this game. And they've said it's at the local game store. The balancing act is all equalized. The great equalizer is limited.
Yep.
The great equalizer for those things is limited. People who don't have card pools, people who haven't had the time to build competitive decks, people who don't have enough money to build the Starvo deck that's going to come out and play 5 legendaries or whatever it is. You don't have to have that. You can go, you can enjoy the game in a great experience. You can experience, the community of the game, gameplay in what's considered a fairly balanced. Now, I don't want people roasting me. There's a ton of talent to limited play required, but it evens out some things, right? Like the card pool, and better players are still going to win games, but newer players and maybe players that don't have the card pool don't feel bad. So it's a really cool time. And I know a lot of players that are veterans in the game get like, okay, I'll play limited for this, 1 or 2 weeks, but then I want to take this stuff and I want to shove it into the decks that I have, right? I have all this, I've spent all this resource, this time and energy and money to build these constructed decks, whether it's Blitz or CC or whatever it is. I want to then modify those and play with, I bought all my toys. I want to play with my toys. So it's a good 2 to 3 week period, but I feel like we're leaning into this. We're going to get new toys and be able to supplement this, but now we're going to have to find a way to prop this scene up that could be driven by this. Hey, it's a very welcome and open experience for new players. So how are we going to prop that scene up, right? Are we going to draft old sets? Are we just going to draft tails for the next year? Like,
so this is where this comes back to what are we marketing? Where this all comes back to marketing. And if like you don't have anything to market, and like they did a good job. We talked about this on the podcast. They did a great job of marketing for Everfest, and it brought eyeballs to the game.
It's been sick.
Yep, they did a great job. But now are we not marketing until April? Is that the next thing we're marketing? Whatever the supplement.
No, but there's a lot of opportunity to market in between there. There's that developer blog. This is what we're working on. Teasers for the PvE that are going to come out on the Twitter account. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And again, they've shown us a uptick in open communication. But man, oh man, I'm just worried about the health of the game. You want people to be constantly brewing and thinking of new things. And I'm not sitting here claiming that we need to enter a Magic the Gathering phase where there's spoiler season never ends because there's just always another set. That's not healthy either.
That's not healthy, but there's a reason that they do that. Like the reason that they do that is because there's something, not just that, it gets people in front of the game all the time. You can wake up tomorrow and there'll be some sort of Magic the Gathering news that you want to consume.
But it drives people away from the game as well. As someone who's a pretty big fan of Magic myself, I get to the point where I don't care about Magic the Gathering spoiler season. I don't. When Flesh and Blood spoiler season hits, it's an event.
Yep, 100%.
It's an event, and I care about it. And the community is on fire. Now, there's a level where that will start to numb, right? It's like a drug. And if we keep taking that drug, sooner or later, we either need to take more of it or it doesn't do anything. However, there's a balancing act.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's right.
One standalone set a year is not the move, but 20 is also not the move. There's a golden zone in there somewhere.
I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying there's a reason that they do it. And the reason that they do it is eyeballs. And I mean, Rudy talks about this all the time. The number one most valuable asset in any world right now, which we're in this world, but any world right now is eyeballs on your
That's why we do what we do. That's why we do it.
And that's why we are
it's
so incredibly biased here. But like, I don't know what to make for a Flesh and Blood video. Like, I don't know what, like there were before Everfest, there was weeks where it was like, what am I doing? What am I supposed to make? And then people get mad at you for making other content. But as a content creator, as a content creator, there was a period of time when I had 100 new subscribers in a month, as opposed to when Everfest comes out and all these other, new sets come out where it's 400 to 500 a month. And so as a content creator, now I'm doing content on other games as a result of not having anything to talk about with the game that I created the channel for.
100%.
And this is where when we say Flesh and Blood is competing with Magic the Gathering, or Flesh and Blood is competing with Yu-Gi-Oh, or Flesh and Blood is competing with XYZ, this is true. There is a billion things competing not for my attention, but also your attention as the viewer.
Yes.
There's a million things competing for the next person that walks into a TCG, or the next person to pull up ibc2.com, or the next person to pull up Twitter and hit the TCG hashtag thingamajig. Like there's a million things. Yeah. There's a million things competing for our attention, and like I don't know, like this is the type of thing that there is always going to be people leaving a TCG. There will 100%. Always be people leaving Flesh and Blood. There will always be people leaving Magic the Gathering. The key is, how do you bring in more people through the front door while people are leaving out the back door, and how do you keep as many people inside the house at the same time?
And I think people need to get comfortable with that. You mentioned something interesting there. It's Flesh and Blood is competing with Magic the Gathering, and that is just a fact. That is 100% a fact. And most people aren't like me and aren't like you. Most people don't devote this much time and this much energy to the TCG world. We just don't. That's not what most humans do. So the fact that you and I play 4 to 5 different games at least a casual level, like we're willing to buy the product, open the product, try the game, play the game, get friends together, do that. That is not what most humans do.
Yeah.
That's just not how they operate. So Flesh and Blood getting themselves in the limelight is important, because it is easy when you're not someone who has fallen in love with the game, right? You like the game, you enjoy the game, but there's a giant either content or product drought, which again, I'm not criticizing the product cycle here. I'm saying if that were the case, it's easy to fall out of that into something where content is smashing you in the face on repeat over and over again. But the antithesis to that is it's not LSS's job to give me content to make. I'm a content creator because I love Flesh and Blood and I love TCGs. Now, from the flip side of the pond, like you, I am all a Flesh and Blood channel because I get a lot of hate. I've talked to you about this before. I would love to make Magic the Gathering content. I'm Magic the Gathering Modern. We talked about the meta earlier. I think that's the meta all TCGs should strive for. I would love to make Magic content, but it's not sustainable. It's people don't like it because people have their TCG and they love it. The fear is that if that TCG doesn't compete for your attention, get your eyeballs on it, that TCG will slowly start to lose players as other TCGs slam things in your face. The quality of the game, I think Flesh and Blood's the best game out there right now. It's so much fun to play. And again, I can't say this enough. It lets the skill of the player shine. It's amazing. It's so good. But that almost doesn't matter if you can't keep the attention of the masses. Yep. And that's the only thing that scares me here. That's the only thing, because I, as a content creator, think I'm all in on Flesh and Blood. I don't have a backup plan. I don't have anything else. And if even I can't think of stuff to make videos for, as someone who's all Flesh and Blood, I don't have a backup, so I have to do it this way. It seems like people could leave. It could be an opportunity for people. It's an exit ramp for people to get off. Yeah. Sorry, I rambled, but it scares me. I'm scared. This
comes back to something that has been on my channel for a year now, which is marketing. What are we doing to what is the company doing to market the game? And when you don't have a new set, it's kind of hard to market. Like, that's the answer
but the marketing here, just to push back on that, couldn't the marketing be the play circuit? And I'm not saying I'm not here to argue if that's good marketing or bad marketing. But in a room somewhere, could someone have decided that instead of the new set carrying the marketing, the play circuit is going to carry the marketing? Is that a decision that could have been made?
I think I think that's LSS's thing. I think they see, hey, we're doing these events and that's going to market the game. I think that is great for the current player base, and probably great for probably great for a competitive, like I'm sure there will be competitive Magic the Gathering players. I mean, at SGC Con, you had
it's not just competitive people.
But hold on.
The events they're putting out are so great for any player of any skill level. They're so good. They do the best events in the world.
All right, but bro, come on. Like taking like the target demographic for Flesh and Blood is 35 years old. Our viewership is between 28 and 40 years old on average, you and I. So
that is actually not mine. I get a little younger views.
A little younger. Ooh,
Dude, the kids like Hometown TCG. Let's go.
I don't actually know if
I think it starts at like 20. I'm like 24 to 25 is where I see a real big uptick, and then into the demographic you were talking about.
Right, but like so the demographic is not like there's a lot of going away for a trip 6 times a year is a lot.
100%.
That is the key for what I'm trying to get at is like if you're going to compete, that's a great way to keep people interested in your game. That's a great way to keep people from leaving the door. But what's the front door? What's your big, what's your sign on the side of the road? What's your, if it's competitive play, I'm not like, I think that's great. And I think that's a great dynamic for the game.
I don't like what you're doing there though. It's not, that's a false equivalency. There are highly competitive events, and there are 6 of them, and you have to travel to them. And let's say they're Indy, Atlanta, whatever. But at those competitive events are surrounded by far more casual play experiences, and those casual play experiences at those events are loaded. Now, the recent SCG stuff, we said we're going to leave that behind. We're going to see what happens. But in the past year, all those events are packed. They're loaded, and they do a great job. It's not just your highly competitive people. I was playing against people that are like, this is my 3rd game of Flesh and Blood, and I'm in a side event. They do an awesome job with that. So the only thing I want to push back on you, and I'll let you continue, is these events are not just competitive events. There's a competitive nucleus to these events. I agree with you, and that's the center of the show. But the side events, the rest of the atom that spreads out from that nucleus is a blast, and it's so much fun, and I think they do a good job with that.
I completely agree with the sentiment that there are fun events going on. I think let's use Vegas as an example. Sure. Arguably the biggest Flesh and Blood event that's happened.
It was hype.
ever.
I'm just gonna smile when we talk about that event. It was so much fun. Yeah,
obviously the biggest Flesh and Blood event that's ever happened. Right, like
100%.
I think big. And I think one of the reasons that it was the biggest Flesh and Blood event that's ever happened was that it was the release date for a new set.
You're not wrong.
If you compare Vegas, it's also Vegas. Like I'm going to the Vegas calling this year. I'm probably not going to any other Flesh and Blood event this year. I'm going to Vegas because of Vegas. I'm the minority. I have 2 kids and a wife that
I'm going to come visit you. I'm going to throw a Flesh and Blood. Guys, Hometown TCG Classic, the big competitive Flesh and Blood event is happening at Louis' house.
Done. Sold.
Let's go.
So like I think like the key is like that was around a big release, and but so
I think you're 100% right on that.
The front door for Flesh and Blood is the LGS, and being able to have product available and people going into an LGS for pre-releases and that thing. That is the front door. I think
that is a front door. It's probably the biggest front door. I think there are other front doors, but I think you're right. Your sentiment that this is whatever percentage over 50% that jump into the game are going to be here is 100% correct. You're 100% right on that. But there are other smaller front doors I think maybe LSS is leaning into. Like, hey, we're going to try to get these people in these smaller doors and then focus on keeping people in the house. Right?
Okay. My point is that the other games have massive front doors that are screaming, come to me. And they are... But I would venture to send. I would mention.
It sounds weird to say into a microphone.
Everyone assumes that Magic the Gathering is stupid and that they don't know what they're doing and that they're destroying their game. If we take a step back and say maybe the front door of big flashy tournaments wasn't profitable for the company, and maybe it's not sustainable, and maybe it doesn't bring people into the game, and maybe that's why they just stopped doing it. If again, I love the big events and I think they're super important. I think they are essential for the you can't have a front door that goes to nothing. And Magic the Gathering has a big old front door that leads to a pretty empty house inside.
It does.
Flesh and Blood could have, and I think should have, a big old front door that you open up, and there's an amazing house inside with amazing events and amazing, really cool
Are you
things.
talking like college house party? And
yeah, it's a
cake
freaking
stands
college house. Yeah, it's a great thing. And I think with only one standalone set this year, you've reduced the size of your front door.
Sure.
And that's, in my opinion, not something that I like. Now, before we get here, I could not possibly be more biased. Like, my entire YouTube channel is going to suffer as a result of only one set this year, and my storefront is going to suffer as a result of only one set this year.
I mean, I feel the same way. I reached out to you and said, Hometown TCG has an opportunity to crash here, and that terrifies me. It's a scary notion.
The amount of time that it takes to put content together won't be worth it because the eyeballs won't be on it because of the central point.
Right. And I'm going to keep making content on it because, again, I love Flesh and Blood. And it would be nice to be able to pivot 100%. and do something else, like just in that downtime, maybe make a little magic stuff. But the reason I'm here is because I freaking love this game and I love this community. I've made at this point more friends playing Flesh and Blood and than I have, I think, doing almost anything else in my life. So it is a scary time. And the only thing, again, I think that Magic, you just use your house analogy. They're fine with a more revolving door where they're like, hey, I'm bringing as many people as I can in, and I know people are going to leave, but that front door is so big, and I'm smashing so much product in your face. I'm always going to be bringing people in the front door, so I'm fine with them going out the back. I think Flesh and Blood is trying, if I had to guess, they're trying to do, hey, I want to bring you in, and I want you to experience this game, and then I'm doing everything I can to keep you in the house. So I think maybe it's a focus on we're committing to we're not gonna have that giant influx. But without the giant influx, there might be no giant outflux either, because you don't get the people that you get more people to here to stay. They don't get burnt out. So you're holding them in the house. So there's an opportunity there for something cool. Now, do I think that that's the best way to go about it? I think it could be done better. I'd like to see maybe at least one more standalone set in the fiscal year, because again, whether they like it or not, we are a face to their game, and whether they like us or not, however they feel about me, I'm a face to their game because I talk about their game on the internet a metric boat ton without using curse words. So I wish they gave us more to work with, but
and
that's not their job. That's not their job.
I'm sure there's reasons for this too.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they would love
just doing it because they're like, oh, we're going to take a 9-month vacation. Like,
I'm sure that they would love to put out 15 sets a year. But like at the end of the day, like I think the key to this too, and probably what the comment section has already said, now that we're 40 minutes into this conversation
and just roasting us.
But what the comments already section said is we don't know what that product is in April.
The mystery product. So much hinges on that mystery product.
That could be a massive front door. That could be a massive front door. And I think Everfest was a success. Like I think Everfest brought people's eyes kind of to the game. I don't think it brought a bunch of new, like I think the lack of a pre-release and that kind of thing doesn't do as much, but it was still good. It was
great, but lean on Fab Twitter. Like we talked about earlier, something's bringing new people to the game because Fab Twitter has exploded.
Yeah.
It's going off. Yeah. So there's something, if it's not Everfest, and maybe it's the competitive circuit, maybe it's just the hardcore and competitive MTG players that are saying, I'm moving into Flesh and Blood, and then people who follow them, right? So maybe that's the big influx we're seeing right now, but we got to admit, something's doing it, and it's pretty cool. And so not to be all negativity, just for a little positivity here, something, and you and I are missing it because we don't see it. We both agree on that point.
Well, yeah, I think I just said it could be Everfest. It could be the hype of a new kind of thing. I mean, it doesn't hurt. I'm sure the competitive Magic the Gathering people are like, where am I supposed to play Magic the Gathering this year?
At Flesh and Blood events, my friend, play Flesh and Blood.
So like, I think there's that, and that's great. And I think the supplemental set at the end of the year could be really good. And I think the whatever the thing in the middle in April could be really good.
I want to do a case opening for Tails, and because the one thing you didn't mention is Tails, and I know that was last year, but I think that set just gets crapped on for no reason. I love Tails. I think it's a great set for people. It's awesome. It's incredible. Yeah. I'm gonna write a love letter to that set. I think that set brought so many people in the door. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's a great set. I think, and
It's just not this year.
the Monarch and Tails were both great sets, plagued, in my opinion, by a lack of communication and like a lack of understanding of like. I think the market got hosed. The
Yeah, so
market.
this is a perfect transition right here.
Well,
This is great.
let me use this like that. The market got completely hosed by Monarch. The amount of money in the Flesh and Blood world that was lost as a result of the atrocity that was $600 pre-orders for Monarch and the lack
For
of
single
accountability
boxes.
to that is absolutely astonishing. Rudy said it in his video this week that Monarch is going to be plagued by the fact that people don't like it as a result of what it did to their wallets.
100%.
And that will not stop. Like that,
No.
that will not stop.
It's hard to overcome. Ironically, isn't Monarch Unlimited one of the best EV boxes you can open right now?
It's so geared towards the legendaries.
It is.
And I'm sure FaB 2.0 is going to address something to do with the legendaries.
Sure.
It's gotta. I mean, the cost of legendaries is too constrictive for that front door. Like,
but let's transition this because we want to talk about the market, but we just talked about this influx of players, and I think the 2 and 2 tie together. I mentioned Monarch and Tails being just these amazing sets, and you mentioned and I agree with you. We're on the same page here. They're plagued by this market. I know I got burned on both those sets. I bought a bunch of. I'm probably going to get burned in the future. But I buy these things to hold on to for years and years and years.
100%.
I love Flesh and Blood. But if you were a new Flesh and Blood player at the onset of Monarch and Tails, what did you hear about Flesh and Blood? You heard about $1,000 legendaries. You heard about boxes to the moon. You heard about the opportunity to buy this product, hold on to Crucible, and watch the box go to $800. That's what you heard about Flesh and Blood. That was your ear introduction to the game of Flesh and Blood. In 2022, right now, as we said, that's no longer your ear introduction into Flesh and Blood. Your ear introduction into Flesh and Blood at this point is these events, right? That's when you hear Flesh and Blood, that's the first thing I assume you're hearing. You're no longer hearing, hey, if you buy this case, next year you're going to sell it for way more money. You're not hearing that anymore. You're hearing this game has all of these events. It's fun to play. I think that is way better for Flesh and Blood. That's such a positive.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I agree.
So I don't think Everfest is going to burn people because I don't think people got into Everfest because it's going to make you $1 million. That's not why people bought Everfest.
I don't think that so either. I think people are trying to prop up the Everfest market right now, and they're not doing a great job of it. Like,
yeah. You want to expand on that? Expand on that.
There was a little buyout this weekend, and they bought out like 8 to 10. You can see. I don't care who
players.
Okay. You can see on TCG Player, like all of a sudden there's all these purchases, but
right.
They tried to do a buyout, but they bought out 8 to 10 copies of each card. And like, there's 45 copies of the card on the market and people are still getting their boxes in. So I think that there's like, nobody should be trying to get rich off of Everfest. Probably nobody should have been trying to get rich off of Monarch and off of Tails.
We've said this till we're blue in the face. Let's just say it to the viewers again. That time has come and gone.
It's gone.
If you're buying this stuff to invest in, you're committing to holding on to this stuff for years. I want to keep saying that into a microphone because I don't want any more stories about, I got burned. I tried to sell it next week. I don't know what to do with this money. Like, that's not why you're buying it anymore.
And I've said this even about the cold foil commons, where before, I'm talking from WTR ARC, Crucible rares and whatever. Before it was, hey, hearts and eyes are selling for $50K for a graded heart. And that means that a raw cold foil common is incredibly undervalued at $300. That's what I said for a long time. And it turned out that while hearts were selling for, that amount of money, the cold foil commons were worth more like $600 to $700. And that's more applicable. Well, now the market is completely shifted, and the market, the market, cooled is a lax word. The market is not. It's just not there. And I think it's not there as a result of there not being a volume of people with that amount of money. But the people who were buying cards for, and I think this is the truth for all TCGs. And I think anybody who is investing and buying TCGs needs to understand this. this was my takeaway from the Star City Games Con this weekend.
Oh,
there
all
were
right, hit me with it.
There were 800 people there to play Magic the Gathering, and there were 80 people there for the biggest event for Flesh and Blood. That is only 1,000, not even 1,000 people at a major event for a major company in our market. The TCG market is tiny.
It's
this is my
100%.
takeaway. It is a small market, and such
we're small, but we're strong.
The amount of people that can afford a $10,000 alpha box, the amount of people that can afford a $50,000 graded card is not very big. And so,
but there's another aspect to this, right?
Which is
you just turned me on to something we just talked about. Everyone's. I didn't mean to say you turned me on into a microphone.
That's all right. You said it, and it's not getting. I'm editing the podcast. It's going to
go away. People's entrance to Flesh and Blood. Like the first thing you hear about Flesh and Blood was these cards going to the moon and boxes going to the moon and everything. Right during this time that cold foil hearts were selling for 50 grand and stuff. Now these people are hearing about the game and the events, and we both agree. Again, it's a great game. So, do you think there's an aspect of it like people are buying boxes of Flesh and Blood now, no longer to sit on their shelf for years? They're buying it to open. They're playing the game. People are introduced to Flesh and Blood as the gameplay experience, so they have no interest. I don't want to buy $500-$600 Null Rune Hood when I can buy 3-cent Null Rune Hood and go to my LGS and sit with my friends and play the game. There's an aspect of that where I have been the champion of this. Welcome to Wraith. Alpha stuff is too expensive because it's too early. Not because it's too rare, not because it's not cool. It's just too soon. But people are leaning off. They're like, I don't need that. I want to play Flesh and Blood. Now, it will probably ebb and flow between the two over time, but this is where we're at right now. That's not why people are buying Flesh and Blood stuff.
Well, the issue is that a market this small with this few cards is incredibly easy to be manipulated. It's incredibly easy to if you have $500,000, you can make the Flesh and Blood market look like it's pumping pretty easily. There are
But what does that do for you? If the market's that small, you make the market look like it's
I have
pumping.
no clue. I don't have $500,000. I have no clue what the end goal is on this. Like you have
all right, do you have $300,000?
You get stuck with a bunch of cards and you are telling everybody else that they're worth more than they are and that this is the best time to buy into the game ever because the market has never been this low and blah blah blah.
Like, but it is. You don't need any of that to buy into the game.
Right.
You don't need any of the stuff that's being pumped to buy into the game.
What I'm saying is I completely agree with you.
Okay.
That
I'll drop the defenses then.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. We are in a player's market and we have been in a player's market for a year now.
But if maybe it's time market,
it's time to say that the market is just a player's market. And
if that's what LSS is using as the front door, as these events, and the market is a player's market, I think that could be an incredibly good thing for FaB, right? Because those two things being aligned are definitely positive. I want to play Flesh and Blood. I can build a deck, and most of the stuff is super affordable. Great.
Right. Yep.
That front
right
door
now, I don't feel like we're there
though, right?
I don't feel like this is where I think Flesh and Blood needs to figure out what Flesh and Blood is. And I hope that we address this in FaB 2.0.
It's the best game on the market. Sorry.
If you want it to be the best players game in the market, then you have to make it cheaper for players to get involved. Because dude, come on, like what's the price of a CC deck right now? A competitive CC deck.
What's the price of a competitive modern deck?
I want you to compare.
You don't have to have the world's deck to play Flesh and Blood at your armory. That is the foundation of Flesh and Blood.
Totally understand. But would it not be better if the decks were half the price? Would it not result in more
because
people
it's a symbiotic relationship. If all of the legendaries for everybody went to zero and it was super affordable, people would get out of the game. So
that's not my solution. That's not what I'm saying.
But you can't have both. It has to be a symbiotic relationship. It can always shade one way or the other. But the cost, I'm so sick of hearing that argument. The cost of Flesh and Blood is too much. No, it's not. No, it's not. It is comparable to every single game. And everyone looks at this is the world champion deck. Yeah, guess what? That one's expensive. But I'll take a deck to armories that will use no legendaries. Fine. You can do this. You can play these decks. You can be competitive. Those side events that we talked about, you can jam those, win tickets, get boxes that are affordable. You can have a ton of fun and work your way up there. That's the worst take ever. I'm so sick of hearing that. I'm sorry.
But dude, like,
you're beautiful.
listen,
I love you. You're so good looking.
Okay, but buddy, like my buddy Robbie did that. And he played against and he got murdered. He got slaughtered. He got wrecked at the calling at the side events. He got wrecked as a result of doing that. And he didn't have fun.
What 100%? Then he's got to go. You got to start lower. Go to the armory. Go to the local armory.
Okay.
You went to the calling, right? And if it truly is, and there's levels to this, right? So if the deck is $1,500 and the deck your buddy Robbie played was $200 because it was
Robbie wasn't going to win. Robbie wasn't going to win anything.
This is not an indictment on Robbie. Robbie, I've heard so much about you. Never met you. It'd be cool to meet you.
It's all right. Robbie doesn't watch my content. He's just like you.
I watch your content because I'm supportive. You don't watch my content.
I don't watch TCG content. I'm done watching TCG. It makes me sad.
That's not what I said. It's just hurtful, and I cry every single night. And I tell Chris, I just need Louis to watch my content. But there's levels to that, right? And sure, yes, if you go to because Tales of Aria, that we were still coming off this is the first event. And so everyone is trying to bring the spice, the absolute. Now that there's more of these events, there's more people bringing less of the spice. The player pool is wider. The very first event ever, those side events are going to be the top players that scrubbed out that then jumped into the side events. But if that's the B tier event and he's got a D tier deck, yeah, he'll still get crushed. But you can find D tier players. You can find D tier decks. You can build into a C tier deck. You can take these things steps at a time and you can have fun. You can enjoy this. You don't have to play. If you play a D tier deck against the world champion, you're going to lose. Sure, you're going to get crushed. But you can find players who aren't. You can find that. It's out there.
Okay, but here's my point. This is I agree with you. Like my Thursday night armories are exactly that. It's people who are there to play, who are looking to have a good time, and who are enjoying it.
Can't he just play in those?
Yes.
And enjoy himself and love his deck.
He absolutely can. Yep, 100%. 100%. But what is being marketed to the new player, and what you were saying is marketing in the front door, is skirmish season, and there's all these prizes and pro quests, and you can get your invite to the pro tour, and hey, we have these major events in the calling. All the entry level stuff for the new person is geared to it. And so if that's going to be the case, then I think the price of a Command and Conquer can't be $100 if you're gonna that's what I'm saying. And
I see what you're saying. And I guess as a newer player, you have to dig deeper, right? Like you have to know, and you won't know until you go.
There's an incredible amount of hand holding that's required.
Yes, you won't know until you go. So if you go to the calling Cincinnati or the calling Indianapolis coming up, you won't know that you can get a C tier deck play experience at that event. You just have to search for it. You have to find like a draft, jump in a draft pod, right? And kind of gauge and talk to people. So you're right. This is something I missed until you just made that statement. That's not marketed to you. That's not like, hey, these side events are for Robbie, right? Robbie, you scrubbed out of the calling Indianapolis. You didn't have fun. Hey, dude, come over here. We're going to show you a good time. We got games going. We're going to make this a blast. There's nothing guiding Robbie from 38-0 loss into an area where he can play and express himself as a player. So you're right on that, but it's there. It's at these events. I've seen it. I've played in it. It's totally there. We need something to guide them to that.
Yeah. You know what that is in Magic the Gathering? Pre-release events.
Yeah, sure.
Pre-release events are the perfect event. It's the perfect casual.
But we can't sit here and be what if. We pivoted off. There's one set this year. This is what we're doing. We have to find a way to guide these players in the existing system.
Yeah, and here's my point. This is where I'm getting. I think this is a player's market, and I think that's what Flesh and Blood is, and that's okay, and that's fine. And like that means that the long-term investability of Flesh and Blood is very healthy, and the long-term of like, you know, a cold foil blank being worth a lot of money in the future is, you know, people are playing the game. That's great. People are coming into the game. That's great. Like 100%. That's awesome. But this attitude of buy everything now because it's the lowest prices have been for 6 months. Yeah, it's the lowest prices have been for 6 months because they keep going down.
But that's just. Can I curse? Am I allowed to curse?
I don't care. It's your channel.
That's shitty investment advice.
I get it. Yeah.
Regardless of the asset, regardless of the situation or the asset, the answer is never take all the money. Or sorry, not
But
never. I know some of the comment sections already pointed out in 1942. No, is very rarely take all of the money you have at one time, throw it at something, and watch it explode. It's always time in the market will always beat timing the market. It's a trickle effect, right? You're gonna fill more buckets of water if you leave the faucet on trickle than if you turn it all the way on and the city shuts off your water. Right?
I hate that saying.
It's so good.
Time in the market will always beat timing the market. I hate that saying.
Why? It's
because it only works on like stocks and bonds. That doesn't work on things that can go to zero or can
stocks
go
and bonds can go to zero. There's this company called Enron, dude. You gotta look up.
I understand, but like that's an applicable thing to like safe investments, and this is
Flesh and Blood is not a safe investment. It's a startup.
No TCG. Let's be very clear. Let's be very, very clear. No TCG is a safe investment.
Magic and Pokemon will go through its ups and downs. I don't think it'll go anywhere. Maybe after we die, but
listen, like no TCG, especially early TCGs like this, I'll give you that, is a safe investment. This is not where you should be putting your life savings and whatever.
No,
and that statement, in my opinion, applies to safe investments of time in the market always beats timing in the market. Like, I don't know. I just think that
I don't think you can apply it to like investing in a startup that could fail tomorrow. But I think Flesh and Blood has proven that it can go to zero. However,
I'm not saying Flesh and Blood is going to zero. Or that Flesh and Blood
I'm not saying.
Like, we're not saying
that at all.
The current climate of the Flesh and Blood market is saying cold foils are not worth that much more than rainbow foils. It's saying, you know what's astonishing to me? I honestly don't think that this is a strong word. I think that maybe 1% of the people who are investing in Flesh and Blood are investing in Unlimited. I have had more WTR Unlimited cards on our marketplace on TCG Player than any other seller in the entire market this week. I've had more WTR cards on the market in the last 2 weeks.
You just opened like 4,000 boxes.
I can tell you this. I have only sold 2 of 7 hearts. I don't sell. Nobody is buying multiple.
It's a player's market, like you said, and you don't need the heart to play.
This is exactly, I'm making the point. I've not sold multiple legendaries. It's always person buying one Brave Forge Bracers and then the Majestics for Warrior. It's not somebody buying Brave Forge Bracers and this and that and the other thing.
Yeah, I got you.
This is right now and has been for the last year a very, very heavy players market, which is great for the long-term investment of the game. But that does not mean, if you look at the market, that we got it right 6 months ago when we had the print run announcement and things went up to $550,000 for a cold foil heart.
No,
that does not mean that price is ever coming back. That does not mean that right now. Does not mean that right now you're buying things at a 70% like discount.
And if the price does come back, it could be so long that it doesn't make a difference. If Flesh and Blood stands the test of time, right, and it outlives you or I, let's just say, we hope that happens. But those prices, you cannot see them.
I very much hope it happens.
You cannot see
somebody who bought an eye at that point in time. I very, very much hope it happens.
There's a chance you don't see those prices until Little Monarch has her own YouTube channel and is talking about how wrong her dad's PVE takes were.
She can pump
40 years ago
for me, and I'm dead.
Whatever it is, I think the main message here too is you got to be careful. You have to understand what you're doing. You're buying a product, right? And if that product goes up in value, that's fine. But it's not like you did mention, it's not like investments in stocks and bonds. It's purchasing a product.
Yep.
It's what it is. People call it investing. And people say, I'm investing. You're purchasing a product. And at one point, you're hoping to resell that product. But there's a chance, unlike stocks and bonds, that, like you said, probably won't go to zero, a couple outliers notwithstanding, there's a chance that one day there's no buyers for that product. So you have to be careful, and the product can get ruined. It can get rained on. It can be lost in a fire. These things can disappear. You're buying a product, so you have to do so safely.
And right now I can tell you that there's more cards being added to the market than there are people buying those cards. If you search for a cold foil common this week, or even a cold foil legendary, to be honest, there are more on the market this week than were on the market 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. 6 months ago, 7 months ago, when you search for a breaking scales cold foil, there were none of them on the market.
Yeah,
Maybe
like
one of
two.
them, one of them for $2,000. But now there's people starting auction. We had an auction that didn't finish or it didn't get any bids on for a Brave Forge Bracers cold foil at $1,500, 0 bids.
Right.
And so
but you can sell a Brave Forge Bracers rainbow foil for someone who wants to play Warrior.
Right. And so like this is the right now you're seeing what's happening is that the number of buyers has shrunk, and like people have the cards and like
the number of buyers for these high end for the collectibles invest in
singles market of unlimited absolutely on fire. Absolutely.
It's great.
I've had no problem selling singles. Like I said, I had 75 orders this week.
Right.
Zero of those orders were cold foil. I've got cold foils listed, and one of those orders was a foil hero. That's it.
Okay. It's so, gonna be cool. Do FaB 2.0? Do you think that addresses? We talked about how the first edition Unlimited life cycle isn't the same. This big FaB 2.0 announcement is looming, and I remember I mentioned this every time we talk about the market. It's in the mission statement of the company to gather people around playing and investing in great games. So unless they pivot off that mission statement, the market will always be something they look at. They're looking at it according to their mission statement. The big statement, I shouldn't call it their mission statement. The big statement put out from the founder of the company, it's something that's on their radar. So do you think they're going to prop it up? I don't put you on the spot here. Do you think they want to fix the secondary market, or do you think they just want to keep making a great, healthy game?
I can tell you what I think they want to do.
Obviously it's both. That's a bad question. Both.
I think that they are very much listening to people who have large amounts of money invested in Flesh and Blood, and that they want to prop up that market. Okay. I do not think that is the solution.
But
if
I'm fine with that.
If 90%
it doesn't affect the game.
If 90%, 95%, whatever percent don't care about the investability side of it, if the majority of people are here to play the game, then I think you should lean into that and just protect those players. In other words, don't print 1 billion boxes of Unlimited or whatever. Watch the secondary market, make sure Command and Conquer is not a $400 card.
Right.
Watch the secondary market, be aware of it. Like Magic is, right? They reprint cards that are old,
they
that
don't
are
watch
80.
The secondary market. They openly say we don't follow the secondary market. They just happen to reprint really expensive things on the secondary market.
Fetch lands were 50, 70, whatever dollar cards, and they were too expensive, and they reprinted them a bunch, and now they're $20 cards, and everybody knows.
They don't watch the secondary market. That's just luck. They just I guess.
Everybody knows that they will be $50, $70 cards again at some point, and then they'll reprint them and they'll sell boxes. And that works really well for stores. That works really well for players who want the cards, and people who are in the hobby for a long time should not be burned by that. And that's probably what happens with legendaries, in my opinion.
So there's this whole sector of us that invest. We talked about invest and we buy these products. Remember, they're not meant to do that, right? They're meant to be games. They're toys that are played with.
I think the biggest question people need to be asking themselves is, what is the print run that they're happy with from Monarch and Tales and Everfest? Because
Have we got those numbers yet? Are they not
no,
out?
And I think people think that this is going to be the savior of the Flesh and Blood market. But I don't know.
Announcement. I think the announcement's going to be horrible. I think they printed a ton of it.
Well, the fear is what if they didn't print a ton of it? That's the bigger issue. Everybody wants them to say, oh, we printed a ton of it, and that's why prices are $150 a box. But what if they really only printed 10 to 15% more than
how much of that stuff's not? But what if it's only not being purchased? What if the floodgates are being held back by the notion of we printed so much of it? And then the announcement says, hey, we didn't print a ton of it. And then people look at Monarch and go, it's a year-old box I can get for $150. I'm going to buy as many of them as I can.
Right, maybe. The other side of that is, oh, crap, like there's only this many boxes. The Emperor now has no clothes. There's only this many people who are really interested in investing in the game.
100%.
And that is in my mind, that is the biggest question mark, and what is making the investors the biggest worry is we don't know the print runs. We don't know for me, I haven't changed anything. I bought a metric ton of Monarch, and I bought Monarch since then. Like I invest in Flesh and Blood. I love the game. I love the stuff. I have already once put my life savings into Flesh and Blood cards. It's called the Eye of Ophidia. I've already done that, and I'm all in.
Yeah.
Now,
no one's questioning your all in-ness here,
but like
at least on this podcast.
I'm just being honest. Like
right.
That is my biggest fear, is that print run comes out and the answer is like, there were $50,000. What was crew was 37,000.
Yeah, I think so.
There were 50,000 Monarch boxes. I can tell you right now, I don't think that affects Monarch as much as it affects crew. Like,
that makes sense. That makes sense, because now you're looking at the discrepancy and you're looking at the print run numbers. And you're like, why are these so far apart? But also, there's always an argument for the big three, right? The first two sets and the very first supplemental set. And again, we talked about these are toys. These are memories to people. It's different than stocks. It's different. Yep. It's in a different investing strategy than stocks. These hold nostalgic feelings to people. I've made my wife, to her dismay, I have decorations. I have boxes around the house. Like we have, we have a wine like rack and stuff like that. She's got a bunch of decorations and pictures, and I have boxes of cards on there as decorations. They hold a special place in my heart. So there's a value to that beyond that. But if you're truly looking at it as just a numbers game, it's going to be interesting to see which way this shakes out. Is the Monarch floodgates being held back because we assume that they printed 100,000 boxes, or are the floodgates just being held up, and when they announce it, it's going to be a realization that, this $150 box maybe is only $100 box. Like it's going to go one of two ways, right?
Is it just that everybody has the Monarch that they want, and that the investors who are here all have plenty of Monarch, and that they don't need to invest in more Monarch,
and you're going to need new investors then
now the question is
to go up.
Now the question is, how big is your front door, and how many new front investors are coming into the game? How many new players are coming in the game that then turn into investors that say, I want a sealed box? The issue is that I personally think that most of those people who are players are people who maybe invest and collect one or two booster boxes.
Right.
Not like me, who has multiple cases of Monarch, multiple
the castle of sealed.
I think like it's just a question. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the answer is. I do know this. This is what I know more than anything. If Flesh and Blood is around in 10 years, then none of this matters.
None of this matters. You're 100% correct. It will stand if it stands the test of time, which the argument is that done by being this awesome gameplay experience. And if it does that, then none of this will matter. And the market that we talked about will have its ebbs and flows, but it will be obviously healthy because it's there.
It needs to be more than a good game. Like this, go watch Rudy's recent video on new TCGs. He says it like being a new game is 100%
it's a symbiotic
important.
Relationship. You have to exist on this spectrum. You're right.
You have to be I'm not talking about investing. I'm saying you have to be a good game. You have to have good marketing. You have to have good communication with distribution and a good relationship with distribution. You have to have good connections. I think that Flesh and Blood has those things in their arsenal. And if they put those things together, and in 10 years, the game is still here, which I wouldn't have quit my job and I wouldn't have continued this YouTube channel. I can go get a job right now. It's really easy. Like, I could go get a job tomorrow. I have relationships
Big man with a job. You think you're better than me?
Like, I could go get a job, but I choose to stay here and make content about Flesh and Blood because I believe that the game will be here in 10 years.
Yes.
That being said, the success you're not going to triple your money tonight. You're not going to go out and this is why you're seeing more people sell right now than buy, because the idea of tripling your money in Flesh and Blood, we've seen this fail now with the unlimited sets. WTR out of print announcement, Arc go out of print announcement, Crew out of print announcement. The market tried and it's not there. Like it's not there. Like the quick flip market's not there anymore. So now you're seeing people who want the long term, they want to have, cold foils for 10 years versus the people who are like, no, I can sell a $300 cold foil and buy that, those 3 legendaries that I need it from unlimited to play these 3 different decks that I want to play. That's
Sure.
that's what, in my opinion, is what's happening.
Okay. I think it's all going to shake out to what happens in the next 10 years. I think we both agree on that. And I think the market's in a weird spot right now. You said there's this attempted buyout going. I don't know if that's the move, but it's happening. I'm pretty excited for this. It's going to be interesting to see. And I might not have as much skin in the game as you from a market standpoint, but I'm in the game. That's for sure.
It doesn't matter how much skin you have in the game.
I'm a backup player, but it's going to be interesting. I want to know from people before we get into the crazy comment section below. Let's see who's still watching. And I want to know who's still looking for Everfest cards to finish their deck for some event that they're going for. Does everybody have their stuff? Or let me know in the comments if you're still looking for cards. I'm interested in the number of people that are like, I have this event coming and I don't know where to get these cards. Because if that's the case, if people need the cards and they don't have them, then we're in this weird market where everything's cheap and we think things are crashing, but everyone still needs the stuff. But no one's buying it, which is weird.
This comes back to what's going on with Unlimited. Yeah, this is
where nobody wants to buy the first edition Majestics to play with when you think the Unlimited ones are going to come out and be
which is in my opinion weird. Crazy, because if you look at Tales of Aria, there's really not a massive difference in prices of the cards.
There's not.
Like you're not going to, I don't know, you're not going to lose out on a ton of money because there's just not the volume.
We've hammered the market through and through, and I got to tell you, dude, I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to talk about the market and learn a little bit about it and give my feelings on it, because it's not something I get to do much. So thank you for that.
Well, I like your alternative. Like I think it's a good, healthy dialogue. I think people
we view the game from different perspectives. I mean, they're pretty close because content creators and everything like that. But we got into the game and we sustain ourselves in Flesh and Blood in very different ways. So it's really cool to have this conversation. I wonder how many people think that we just like hate each other when we argue like this.
Oh, I hope not. I think.
I do.
I think the Flesh and Blood market has just changed, and I personally am embracing that change. Like, I think it's a healthy change. I honestly think the Flesh and Blood market, if you look at a 10-year timeline, is in a much healthier place than when the card game was impossible to get, when WTR was impossible to get, and when you couldn't get boxes for players and all that stuff. Like, I think long term the market's in a healthier place. Now, I would like to see better marketing and better communication. I think all those things are essential for the long term, but I think like that's I think other people want to go back to where we were, where it was free tendies, and like that's not here. It's gone, and you can make it artificially exist for a week or two, but like there's nobody on the other side of these buyouts. That's what I don't understand. Like,
you do the buyout, and then where do the cards move to your shelf? Or
I think there's nobody on the other side of the buyouts, in my opinion. So I don't know.
It might, it's let's give it time. If someone's doing a buyout, let's give it time to shape up. Let's give that time to see like, hey, how does it work? Again, I was a part of a TCG player buyout, if only momentarily, with my former partner John, and we bought out foil Majestics, and that we made our money back and then a little bit. The problem was it wasn't sustainable when Runeblood Barrier was $80 for a foil first edition. Like, it hit $80 and one or two of them would sell, but then people just stopped buying. They're like, I'll just play with a different card.
And what is Runeblood Barrier now, Rainbow Foil, on the market?
Don't tell me. I think I still have like 9.
It's probably like $25 to $30 max.
I think are they that high? Let's go. Let's go. I think it's like 9.
That's the point. Is like there's nobody on the other side of the buy, because people want the cheapest version of the card now. And like that's a different world than where we were in. When I started Flesh and Blood, when I started playing and investing, everybody wanted the most expensive version of the card. That's
now
what everybody
people
wanted.
Want the cards to play the game. I'm pretty stoked for that. I think it's going to be neat.
It's a good thing for the longevity of the game. So
I agree. So let's get into the crazy comment bonanza minute, whatever we call this thing. Dude, I can't read. What do we call it?
Crazy comment collection. I have it in front of me, so it's easier for me.
Closing crazy comment collection. One more time, I am going to have a background for next week. I have been roasted on the no background, both in the comment section and locally for people that watch the podcast. They're like, you got to do something, bro. I'm like, okay. So next time you'll see it here first. Next time, background. Let's go. What's your comment?
I would like to shout out multiple people. Michael Ross, sorry mate. I think folks have decided dull cap. Cole Love, I literally thought crewneck was a play on crewneck t-shirt. Dull bargain brand tunic and pulse triangle. Sorry Louis, dull cap is a better print run. Better pun. All three of you guys are incredibly wrong. And I apologize that you are so wrong in your opinions on dull cap versus ever cap.
Michael Rose is the homie. Shout out. It's often that we find, what is it? Have you ever seen those videos with penguins? And there's like one lone penguin like lagging behind, and then like three of us got to go and be like, hey man, like you're gonna get eaten. Like get up with the rest of the group. As much as we make fun of you, Louis, we're going to get you with the rest of the group. We're going to make sure you're not eaten by the walruses and, sea lions out there. We got your back, dude.
Do you know Michael Rose? Is he from your community?
I do now, though.
It's always funny reading comments, when people are from New Zealand and Australia. I've never interacted with this many people who say mate and cheers. And it's awesome.
Number 2 podcast in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Mate and cheers are just things that are always presented. We were pretty high on almost all the categories too.
Let's go, guys. We're pushing number 1. I'm a competitive guy, in life.
You're gonna have to compete with me in the other podcasts. Then I think it's weird. I got an email.
I think I'm a better conversation than the other podcast.
100%. I think I got an email about it, and I didn't get an email about it in May the Zoo Be With You. So it's interesting, but. Number 2 in the hobbyist category of podcasts in New Zealand, only on the audio version.
That's because your face is on here. Last week was nice. I'm pivoting this week. It's the other way. Look over here. Look over here.
That stress of content creation.
I'm afraid to look. I don't want to look back and what I age in 5 years if I'm still lucky enough to make content.
Look at me. I shaved.
You look great. I thought it just grows in like that.
What's your closing crazy comment?
My closing crazy comment. I got a shout out. So the first one, I'm gonna do one here. I got to shout out Dennis Kuhn, the homie, hometown TCG Dennis, Big Daddy Vegas. He wants to know where's the MetaZoo minute here. That's the content I came for. And I got to inform you, we like to focus on games that you can play.
Oh my gosh.
I just wanted to irritate you. The only reason I picked this one is just to irritate you.
Listen, the thing that pisses me off more.
I know, that's why I did it. That's the whole reason.
Is the way that Flesh and Blood was treated by Magic the Gathering fans. Nobody plays this game. It's just a scam. It's a money-making scam. And now we have Flesh and Blood, and MetaZoo comes around, and nobody plays this game. It's just a money-making scam.
Bro, that's why I did it.
It's so freaking annoying.
I know how to get a rise out of you nowadays.
The kid in high school who got beat up by his dad and now is beating up on all the other kids. That's what these Flesh and Blood people are. They got beat up on by Magic the Gathering people, and now
I'm beating up on you.
Now they're hurting other people who are just trying to enjoy a freaking TCG. God forbid more people come into our hobby and enjoy playing TCGs and enjoy collecting. It's a terrible thing to have people come into a hobby and go to local game stores and buy stuff and support the store. Let's just not have more games and not have more people. Instead, let's just sit in our own little world and completely ostracize ourselves from the rest of the world. And we're the only TCG that exists. The rest of the TCGs suck and they're horrible.
Oh.
I can keep going if you're not done.
Are you done?
I can go all day.
So those of you that know, I only picked that comment to see the rise that I would get out of you, and it did not. I wish I would have told you about this beforehand. I'm so glad. I'm kind of glad I didn't actually. Just because
you would not have gotten the same response.
That was incredible. For those who don't know, I ordered cards. I ordered product from you to support them because I watch your content and I buy your product because one of us is supportive, but. I took a picture and I did send it to all the locals. I saw there's a little gift there on top, and I think you and I are going to play a little MetaZoo. I got a little surprise. I opened it up. There's a couple cases of Flesh and Blood, and there was a single little MetaZoo deck on the top there, just peeking up at me like
Hobskin Goblin deck.
I told you I sleeved.
Hobsville.
I sleeved it up. I sleeved it up.
He said, For those of you who are still watching, he said, "Is this going to be worth anything, or should I open it and sleeve it up?" I said, "It's second edition. I got plenty more of them. Let me know if you need some more."
Well, I'm afraid if I open this product, and that's like the whole point of the product is just meant to stay sealed and sit on my shelf. I don't want to break it. If I like shuffle the cards and try to play a game, do I break them or
no? You do not. If you put them in sleeves, they're completely fine. It's amazing.
So yeah, no, I am pretty excited. I'm excited to play that game with you. It'll be
also good. They'll have like multiple sets this year. It'll be great. In fact, I think they have like 3 or 4 sets this year. It's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be weird to do this podcast by yourself, dude. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been the reaction phase.
Comment? I thought you had more comments.
No, I was gonna leave it at 1.
Why is it that every freaking podcast I do with somebody, they bring up MetaZoo?
Dennis brought up MetaZoo.
You know what my favorite George comment was?
You got a problem? Get a problem with Dennis. Call Dennis.
Right.
You know Dennis? Call Dennis.
Dennis? Yeah, I'm coming after you, buddy. All right. Everyone, thank you for grinding through it with this episode.
You just wanted to do the closing. I was going to close it.
No, you close it. Close it off, buddy. No, close it.
I don't want.
What are we going to do? Super Bowl predictions?
Okay, Super Bowl prediction. I got the Bengals winning the Super Bowl because if I'm going to put money on something, I want to win big. What do you got?
What's the score?
Bengals Rams. Oh, what's the score of the Super Bowl? 24-21.
You ruined my joke too. I was going to say, what's the other team playing? Because I have no clue.
That's why I was trying to like ease the burden and give them to you because you're a sports ball guy.
The Rams are the other team, and you're saying Bengals are going to win 24-12?
24-21. The Rams are, I think, heavy betting favorites right now.
24-21. I'm going Rams win 35-14. And I stopped watching.
Those are legitimate football numbers you just gave. Just so you know,
like did math. I did math in my head.
You could have thrown like a 17 in there, even though 17 would be fine. Yeah.
Did you see the gears churning as I
could see the smoke coming out. Yeah. Dude, this has been an absolute blast. For those of you guys, if you're not subscribed to both Hometown TCG and Kitchen Table TCG, come on, man. What are you doing? I got a huge announcement coming up. We're going to shake up competitive Flesh and Blood.
It costs you nothing to subscribe at all. It's free.
I don't care if it costs you something. You subscribe to Louis DeGeorge. What are you doing?
Don't subscribe.
I take a more aggressive route with subscriptions than you do. You're like, hey, everyone, be kind to one another. I'm like, click the freaking button, dude.
I think I've asked for people to subscribe to my channel like 3 times. It seems so grimy.
It does. I struggle with that.
But there's a reason why I don't have that many subscribers.
What are we doing?
People love this. All right. Finish it.
I finished it twice now.
Be kind to the people around you. Goodbye.